You are watching the Hot Springs Broadcast Network.
Welcome to Hello Hot Springs, the weekly television show that brings you everything about Hot Springs, past, present, and future. The show's about to begin, so if you don't mind, make sure you share this show on Facebook or YouTube with one of your great social media friends. And now it's time for Hello Hot Springs. Hey, and we are live on the air. Lydia Vidonagay, and my name is John Cooksey, and we have a special guest on our show today, Professor William Maxwell. Go ahead and pick up the mic there. How are you doing today?
I'm doing extraordinarily well. Thank you very much.
Well, and it's hard to believe, folks, this guy is 91 years young and has been working with kids, and we're working with educational programs for years, and we are going to come back to Mr. Maxwell to talk more about a 4th of July thing he's got.
Yeah, so it's so exciting. I'm reading through the program right now, and it looks like a fabulous event, and we're going to talk about your school and all of your life's work. I've done a little digging online. Even though we just met in person, he's got a fabulous website with a lot of interesting facts. So, John, what's next?
Well, earlier today, we did a history of Whittington Avenue.
Yes, I saw that video. It was really cool. And you did not know that gentleman before today.
We had just talked on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we decided, oh, by the way, show 30th.
It is not.
30. It's the 30th show we've done. Hello, Hot Springs. So, yay, our audience. And we don't have as many people because of the whole COVID thing, and we're keeping the 6-foot distance. Lydia, I
told
work
Dr.
together
Maxwell
all the time.
that I'm going to try to talk this way.
Yeah, there we go. But so I went around and did a history, and Jean Lacefield came out from across the street from the first African-American school here in town.
Oh, that's cool.
Right up there off Walnut Street. And it was great to talk to her. She showed me pictures. And then later on, we got done with that, I filmed a drone shot at the Ohio Club.
Ooh,
and let's see some of that.
I haven't seen that
Let's see
yet.
some of this raw
With
footage.
Their new sign?
Yeah, the new sign.
Ooh,
Mike
good.
wanted to film the new sign. We still have to get some more, but let's take a look at this for a second. Some of the drone raw footage from the Ohio Club. Doesn't that look beautiful?
No, that's super. Oh, are we on? Yeah,
Yeah.
I walked by it today. I discovered a new trail that leads us behind downtown to Mountain Valley Water.
All right.
And I walked down there.
Oh,
and
cool.
Then walked back up to my house on Prospect and saw the sign in person.
And 1 second, Houston,
And
go.
it's
We got the
gorgeous.
2-shot. All right.
Oh, it's
so what trail did you go on today?
So a lot of the signs are missing, so I don't know the name of it, but we start on West Mountain, and then we go behind, and you end up at Exchange Street, like
Okay.
behind the
Yeah,
waters.
yeah.
But then we kept going, and we had never done that before, and it looked like a really fun trail
It
to
is.
take
There's
a bike on.
Yeah, there's a boat. You can't.
You can't take a bike on those?
No.
Okay, well, Northwoods is
Northwoods,
flat.
you
Yes.
can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we are also planning to go back downtown, you and I, and do all that
Got my
kind of.
hiking boots
Yeah.
now.
And what's coming up? What's coming up that we need to know
Oh, my
about?
goodness. Well, we talked about all the fun things last week. The bathtub races, July
Oh, yeah,
11th.
that's
I'm
great.
super excited about it. I don't know why I love it so
It's
much,
amazing.
but I do. It's super fun.
Well, we're going to come back with Professor Maxwell, but what first we got to do is have a little commercial from Peter's Flooring and Paint.
Awesome.
Well, I've lived here all my life, and it's
Daniel, bring up
really
the volume.
grown. I don't see it growing like people from, outside do, because we're here pretty much every day, but the way it's grown,
They're on Malvern.
it's just an amazing town. It's an amazing place.
That's
I couldn't
actually where
imagine
my
living
husband
anywhere
works.
else, and I feel
So,
fortunate.
I think
Several of our
they-
children live here as well, and I
How's
feel
the
really
audio,
fortunate
Lydia?
that
How's
they
the
can
audio?
live here too. We have great schools, great education. We have fantastic health care. Our tourism economy is fantastic, so it's just a great place to live. Couldn't imagine anywhere else. Hey, for new folks coming to town, we'd come in, we'd be happy to see you. We will, show you all the array of products that we have. Our sales staff will work one-on-one with you to be sure that you get just the right product. If we need to go to your job site or your house, that's no problem. We're happy to do that. And we'll just take care of you and fix you up and be sure you're happy with the product you purchased from us.
With Mr. Maxwell. We have better mics than last week.
They're so
but
good, but they're so
they're
live
picking
all
up during the
time.
commercial.
I'm not saying anything that we shouldn't be saying.
Well, especially you.
The commercials.
You've
I
been.
know,
Lydia's known for that. Okay, so I would like to introduce again Dr. William Maxwell, who's done some training at Harvard. But your undergraduate, go ahead and you talking to the mic. Your undergraduate was where?
Howard University in
Okay.
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
for 1 year,
All right.
and then Oregon State for the degree, bachelor's degree.
Well, you know, the other Lydia that you met who was
She
with
went to
Daniel?
Howard.
She goes to Howard. Yeah, isn't that
goodness.
amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you got into things with developing educational programs with children.
in
That's right.
Korea, and tell us how you got into trying to develop genius children.
My first encounter developing genius children was I was working for the Learning Institute of North Carolina. I was hired by probably the only genius governor America ever produced, except Roosevelt, a man named Terry Sanford in the 60s. Terry Sanford invented 5 new types of institutions. You heard of one of them at least, Research Triangle Park.
Okay.
Well, he invented the first think tank in America for a state. And the think tank was to how do we improve the geniuses of America. And so I was hired by his think tank, but no portfolio. I could do any dang thing I wanted.
Right.
So I went around the state and asked everybody, what is North Carolina's basic educational need? And the first need was black colleges. There are 15 black colleges in North Carolina. They need financial help. Go talk to them. So I wrote to all the presidents of the black colleges in North Carolina, Dear President, I'm working for the Learning Institute of North Carolina, founded by your governor, and I'd like, the Institute has a free offer to help you in any way we can. May I come and visit? Of the 15 colleges I wrote to, guess how many responded?
I have no idea.
0.
Really?
So then I kept asking people, what's the next great need in North Carolina? So Mary Louise Keister, head of home economics at Greensboro, North Carolina University, Greensboro, then the Women's College. She said the greatest need in North Carolina is preschool, kindergarten.
Right.
So Dr. Maxwell, go model an ideal preschool.
Perfect.
So I started working on it. I knew very little about preschool, but I brought in the top experts of the country.
Right.
A man named Nimnick at Colorado State in Greeley. So he came down and said, here's what a good model preschool looks like.
Right.
So design it. So he and I designed it, and then I ran off to Washington to get $250,000 to start it. But it took a whole year.
Wow.
And-
So,
and-
go ahead.
Oh, I know. I was just going to say, when you were dealing, what year was that?
1966, 67.
So how was it with 67 racial tensions and they started integration in schools? And how did that play out with the preschool thing? I mean, was this preschools for black children or white? Or
It's
was
for
it-
all children.
Okay.
One of the things Terry Sanford invented was the advancement school in North Carolina, which was for 8th grade boys, because that's when kids usually drop out of, they lose their intellectual interest.
I see.
8th grade boys. Terry Sanford invented that, and it was a boarding school. And we went to every county and found the brightest 8th grade white kid and the brightest 8th grade black kid, and they would study together for a year
Wow, that's
in a
very-
boarding school.
So you
Right.
were getting education and integration and understanding of these different races all together at a boarding school.
But no, I had nothing to do with that
Oh,
invention.
that
but mine was for the little kids, so it was no problem getting the money and finding the place in Greensboro for that first. It was called a model school.
Yeah.
And you talked to me on the phone about 50 ideas that you've had or been developed through the years that we are forgetting in our schools today that are
Right.
essential to develop the brain.
Right.
I said, give me an example of one. And you said something which I had totally forgot. I remember growing up with music in the morning.
Every morning.
Every morning, whether it's good morning to you or something. And you told me, Well, what about music? We want to bring back music in schools. And of course, it helps your development. And
does.
I remember Good Morning to You and everything. Tell us a little bit about that.
The basic research on schools and music was done by Plato.
Oh,
So this was, 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
In his prescription of a model school at the time, there was lots of music. There were 3 pillars: mathematics, language, which he called rhetoric, and music, or 4, and athletics.
Right.
If a kid develops those abilities, he's balanced,
that's interesting.
and he will be perfect statesman if all 4 are
Right.
developed
Wow.
equally. That's 2,500 years old.
25, and we're forgetting about
But not one school in this country remembers what Plato said.
Wow.
Anyway, but the basic research in modern times was done by a Sheila Ostrander, who studied what the Russians were doing in the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Wow.
And what the Russians decided to do was to study India. And the Indians 2,500 years ago, like Plato, discovered that if you want a balanced human, that human must have music. So the Indians really invented what we now call Baroque music.
Oh,
Oh
that's
my
great.
goodness, that's incredible. I loved getting on your website and reading about what the child's routine was, and you have something down here from 3.5 all the way to about 12, right? Different age groups and what all they do each morning. And yes, and I love how they get to choose some of their activities.
Well, this is Maria Montessori.
I was going to say Waldorf. I didn't know if you were.
Oh, she's way ahead of Waldorf.
Okay, all right. The
But
Waldorf
good
method,
minds think
Montessori
alike.
method. Yes, excellent.
Maria Montessori, by the way, just a footnote, she was the first woman to attend medical school in Italy.
I didn't know that.
And she would sit in the back because the boys didn't want her sitting near the boys.
Right.
But some of the boys would sit behind her and kick her chair so that she couldn't listen. And then the boys refused to do autopsies with her. So she had to do autopsies at night
Oh my goodness.
by herself.
Wow.
So this is the first woman to go to medical school in Italy in modern times.
Right.
In ancient times, they did.
What's something that's missing in today's school system? You have 50 things, but
And they're on his website,
I
the
know.
50 things I know.
Everything is
So-
missing in today's schools.
Tell us
Everything.
Tell
For
us.
example, Plato's school insisted that all the teachers be geniuses. In America, the average teacher graduates in the lower fourth of her class. In Finland and Japan and Singapore, the average teacher graduates in the top fourth of her class. So our students at age 15 ranked 37th in the world in mathematics.
Right.
So we certainly need some
Everywhere
math
we look
geniuses.
in American school, we are 100 years behind. It's sad. And our students show it. For example, I'm watching a major broadcast tonight, the news. Here's a woman talking with her teeth closed. We don't open our mouths anymore.
Good point.
We make 1,000 mistakes every day educationally. But anyway, we can correct that almost overnight.
And you mentioned, by the way, Lydia being a teacher. I will have to say she's a genius because I've seen her with her kids and she inspires them and she's creative with them and everything. Is a very smart woman
Well,
here.
I was the only graduate of my small private school, so I was in the top and the bottom.
I was the bottom and the top. And so you had mentioned, I'm going to move this mic stand because I don't think we need it right now.
Okay.
You had mentioned athletics that we've taken out
So
of
important.
schools.
Correct.
Movement. Talk to
Yes.
us about that.
I'm at Harvard, and I'm writing a proposal for the ideal school for children at all ages. I don't know why we divide school into 3 sectors: primary, secondary, tertiary. Why?
The older kids can also help teach the younger sometime, right?
The younger kids love to be around the older kids,
Do.
and the older kids are models for the younger. Why we divided them is insane. Anyhow, so I go around to all my professors at Harvard. Here is my model for the ideal school, financially based upon Milton Friedman, philosophically based upon Plato and Confucius. Confucius was the greatest teacher of all times, as you probably know. So I took it everywhere. And I took it to the professor of adolescent psychology at Harvard, a man named George Gersels. He had been a football coach in college, in high school, and Harvard hired him when he came there for a doctorate and kept him there. So he was the authority on adolescent psychology. So he told a story. He and a professor named White had a game they played. Every time they'd see each other casually in the hallway or at a cocktail party, what's the most important? Blank. And they had to answer without thinking. So one day, White, I think, asked Gersels, what's the most important thing that happens in high school? And the answer immediately was sports. Ooh. But the rule was they could not explain the answer.
Right.
So
we had to think about
why that
why
would be
is sports the
yeah.
most important thing.
Yeah.
So here's what George Gersel said. He thought about it. In sports, you're judged by your achievement, not your social status.
Oh.
An important lesson for the world. Judge a man by his achievements, not his status, whether he's white or
Black, man or woman. The word man, of course, we're talking about mankind.
If he's short and ugly, never mind. Judge him by what he has or she has achieved.
So the sport metaphor can be taken into mathematics.
It is.
History, everything else.
For example, look at the greatest mathematical game in the world is baseball. Look how precisely the pitcher's mound is to the home plate, and the exact measurements for first.
Yes.
So it's the first baseman catches the ball, and the runner is running to first base. It's so beautifully balanced.
And the thing about going into somebody's hallway and say, what's the most important thing about whatever? It gets you to think, and there's no wrong answer, is there, right? I mean, there's
exactly.
And so much, I think, in our public schools, the idea is read back to me the right answer that we've told you is the right answer, instead of think, what do you think is the most important thing about, because there's no wrong there, and then you can expound upon it and start a discussion.
It's what do you think, because you're not saying what is true. It's what you think is true.
Right. And then there's the whole, Plato debate right there.
Yeah.
Let's sit and talk about it. We're going to come back in a minute, and we're going to talk about your 4th of July thing. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about what you've seen perspective-wise in your 91 years with racial tensions in the country, where it's come from, where it's go. And we're going to talk about just a whole bunch, Korea, lots of fascinating stuff. And so we'll be back. We're going to see a little commercial for American Tire and Wheel. And we can roll this commercial and actually talk at the same time, because I want to go ahead and roll the commercial for American Tire and Wheel here. Have you been there, Lydia, American Tire and Wheel? I mean, they are wonderful. Matt and Monty and the whole crew do a great job, and they have a great selection of tires. The prices are wonderful. We get our tires there all the time, and they've become a sponsor of us. And they're just a great bunch. They really handle you great. Treat you like family.
Are we off the microphone?
We are not right now. We're just talking about American Tire and Wheel, and we're coming back now. All right. And we are back. Just want to give them a promotion. Okay.
So, yes, tell us about the American Creed Day, and this is on July 4th at Entergy Park. Is this open to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
But before I do, it occurred to me that your audience will want to know 2 words or a sentence or 2 about you two. They don't care about William Maxwell. They want to know who's putting on this television.
Well,
they know a lot about
because this is our 30th episode. I think they know too much about us, but thank you.
We're shifting the screen because John called me earlier this week and said, we have the coolest guy. That's you.
Yeah.
Coming on the show. And I was like, I can't wait to
And
meet
I will
him.
tell you how this show started is we wanted something to talk about different things going on in town. Now, there's not as much right now with the whole COVID thing, but I can't remember whatever co-host I didn't have show up. And I had said to Lydia, who were friends for a long time and friends of the family, come on by and watch the show. So she comes in, and I casually go to her, we didn't have a co-host today. I'd love you to fill in. She goes, okay. So she sat and filled in, and there was really good on-screen chemistry, with the talking, and we thought we got to keep doing this. So she's been here.
Well, and it was do this or help him clean out like the spider-infested shed
Oh,
because I
yeah.
worked for him, and I was
Yeah,
like,
she
"Yeah,
would
we're
work
gonna
for
do
us.
this.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
done with the shed."
Yeah. And so she's been a wonderful co-host and a great person. Just we balance each other out, especially if we go down live or in the studio. It's a good balance.
Fun.
So
Now, go ahead.
But I've been finding geniuses all my life. My first find of a genius was my cousin, who played for the San Francisco Giants.
Oh, the Giants.
Oh, really?
And he was Arkansas Athlete of the Year, and he played for the Yomiuri Giants, and Carl Bowles is his name. He was Athlete of the Year here in Arkansas.
And that's your
And
cousin.
I found him about age 6, and he was about 4.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment you meet Lydia, you know that she's a natural host,
Right.
not for some local television station, with respect,
Yeah.
but for an international television
International, you could do that, yeah.
Hey, but I don't know much about you,
Well,
sir.
I'll just tell you that I would rather sort of be, except I enjoy, because she cracks me up, being up here with Lydia. But other than that, I'm happy behind the scenes. Just for years, I ran a national mail order company selling video accessories and supplies. Before that, I ran a disc jockey service, and I filmed high-end weddings out of the New York area. And then I moved into vacation rentals before Airbnb was even invented. Sort of got out of that, have become a real estate agent, and do this show in Hot Springs Broadcast
With
Network.
mail order and weddings, John, I thought you were going somewhere else.
Mail order brides.
I got really nervous there for a second.
And so then I went over to Russia, you
Yeah.
know,
No, that's great.
and then
Is Mrs. Goodsey from Russia?
Taiwan, but no. Okay, so we
Well,
are.
one quick question.
Yeah,
When I look at
he
you,
should
I,
be an interviewer. By the way, go
No,
ahead.
I see 1/8 American Indian.
I might be. I have to relook at my ancestry DNA. I'm all over the place, but I have a heavy amount of Eastern European, sort of Czechoslovakia, Poland, that different
Okay.
areas over there. But thank you,
But that's my little curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love
And
it.
so, thank you. And so the 4th of July, it starts at 9 a.m. And who should go to this event?
Well, let me tell you about it, please, John and Lydia.
For 38 years.
This morning or last night, everybody's being interviewed about America has to change.
Right.
So one guest on one of the shows, don't ask me which one, because I'm watching them all because I want to know what America is thinking right now. And this particular guest said, it's not only that the police have to change, everything has to change. So here is the most holy day in American history, July 4th. And how do we normally celebrate it? Firecrackers, hot dogs, parades, picnics. But nobody remembers why the American Creed was written. And so this particular event, that, with the help of the police department here in Hot Springs, with the help of the Park Service, my academy is organizing a 4th of July that's completely different.
Wow.
The
They-
lineup is
The lineup
awesome.
is spectacular.
Yeah.
The first thing we start off with is great music. And the symbol of great music is the harp.
Love it.
And so the principal harpist for the Arkansas Symphony has agreed to come down live,
Wow.
despite the virus,
Right.
and play some beautiful harp music at the beginning and throughout the throughout the 1 hour.
Social distance, yeah.
We keep the social distance. The other thing is, we all pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, which is wonderful. But the flag of the United States is not America. It's a symbol of America.
Okay.
There's a greater creed built into the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence.
And just say that for everybody to.
That creed simply says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. That's our creed. Now, where did that come from? It came right out of the Bible. into Jefferson's head. Actually, I think it came through heaven to him.
Okay.
Because he owned 600 slaves. And he did not believe that all men are created equal, because he knew it took a lot of cruelty, sadism, to turn a free man into a slave. He did not believe that blacks were equal.
Now, did he change a little because he had a mistress on
No,
the
because the Holy Spirit often enters into our history. And the Holy Spirit made him write that, I believe.
Works through men even
Oh,
if
right,
they
yeah.
inherently didn't.
Sometimes you get an inspiration.
Sure.
And you don't question where it came from. You just write it.
And I want to just tie into this about the 4th of July. Obviously, the world is feeling a lot of pain. And in America, because people have come into a lot of realizations and truths about disparity with racial issues.
Yes.
Now, you're 91 years old.
Correct.
Give us a little 91-year perspective from your point of view on where things have come from and where things are going and where things need to go.
Briefly.
It's a big, tall order, I know.
Well, I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
When a person reaches 65, they change. They literally become a new person. My grandmother in 1961 turned about 65, and I came home from 9 years of Korea. And she wanted to tell me everything. So here's one of the stories she told me. Her father was a house servant, a mechanic. And her family came from the house servant class in Virginia. They took a wagon as the Civil War was going on and moved to Arkansas. She left behind one room of cousins, 40 little babies in a room about the size of this room,
Okay.
with 40 babies and 4 nursing slaves.
Okay.
And when the baby crawled out of the womb of the mother, the baby was taken away and put on the chest of this nursing woman. And all she had to do was nurse these babies all day long. And when those babies reached 4, they were sold into slavery to go to Alabama to pick cotton. They never knew a mother, they never knew a father, they never knew any love whatever. And so she explained to me how come her family is more loving than many other families, because they didn't go through that form of slavery. They were domestic slaves.
Okay.
And so there was a little bit of kindness often. But anyway, she knew Socrates. Whenever I would meet her, which was frequently, she always had a question for me. One I remember was, Junior, we were walking together from her home to my home, from my home to her home. Junior, what would you do if I died? I'm 5.
Oh, my
What do I
goodness.
do if you die? But so this is what Socrates taught the world. But go into any classroom today, the teacher doesn't ask questions.
So the questions spur the thinking.
The teacher doesn't ask questions. Rather, the teacher dumps useless information into the heads of children. Not you, Lydia, but a lot of teachers. I walk by classrooms all across this country.
And a lot of them are expected from their higher ups to not have free reign. Like, this is what you're going to do. This is the plan. This is you're going to how to do it.
Oh.
We're going to test to prove.
Well, it's an easy trap to fall into because that's what our curriculum says.
The curriculum
Memorize, go,
destroys
do.
the brain.
And also, things get out of hand sometimes when you open up 12 kids to discuss something. And so if you like structure.
Not if the teacher's well trained,
Right,
and
right.
not if the teacher's intelligent,
Right.
and not if the teachers come from good homes. Many teachers tell me, the moment a kid walks in, I can predict what kind of home that kid comes from. Let's take the number 1 D-celebrity in the country right now.
Who?
The man who killed somebody in Minneapolis. I will never mention that
Okay.
name. You can look in that face, any teacher can look in that face and say, this man was abused from inside the womb to outside the womb. He needs your pity, not your hate. And if possible, that man needs your love, as Jesus told you to do.
Love your enemies.
Not your hate. Don't hate him. At least pity him, because he was abused in the womb. That is, his mother was abused by a vicious father, like Hitler's father, like who's the Iraqi guy?
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein, or Sirhan, or look at all these killers.
Right.
Every single one of them was made a killer inside the womb.
How do
Don't hate them,
Right.
pity them, and if you can, love them.
which is a very higher level concept to love your enemies,
It's
but it's
very
in the Bible.
difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I know where Jesus was coming from though when he said love your enemies, because he also said it's the very hardest thing that you may have to do to accomplish that. But it tying it into the fact that we are all connected with each other. We are all our brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
And yet there's something about people that after the first 5 or 6 days of the death of George Floyd, everybody, oh, that's really sad. Yeah, it should never happen. And then there was polarization. Well, look at the rioters, and they put rioters and protesters together. And then the divide opened again. And part of it is, I blame all types of media. You can make ratings by creating controversy, and we refuse to do that on this channel. You know, it'd be easy to have one person one way and get a fight going, and then everybody tunes in. We will have less viewers on this show because we're looking for a solution, not for
Discussing
controversy.
ideas.
Yeah. So what do you think? Because you've had so many years of watching history in real time. So what do you think that what perspective can you offer, because people that are 40, 50, 60 don't have the perspective you have in terms of where we need to go and where we've come from?
I spent 2 years in Selma, Alabama, which is one of the most hate-filled places in the world. The first time in my life I saw a hate stare,
And what year was that?
4 years ago.
Oh.
And hate is a part of our culture, and yet it need not be. I've experienced, as any black person has experienced, hate of all kinds, in many different ways. But what we have to understand is that the ignorant black who has never had a loving father or mother, a loving grandmother, is coming out of a deprived background. I'll give you the case, my own personal case. I grew up in Center Point, Arkansas, Howard County, and we moved to DeQueen. In DeQueen, for example, my teacher was a man named Ulysses S. Harris, who became a math teacher at North Little Rock. He had a master's degree from Chicago. His salary as a teacher, this is 1939, 40, his salary was $40 a month. 40. 1.25 miles down the street, a lesser trained white teacher's salary was $200 a month.
Wow.
5 times. I'll give you the statistic for Texas A&M and Prairie View. Same thing. In 1960, the state of Texas voted for $6,500 to Texas A&M per student. How much did they vote for the black college, Prairie View, that same year, 1960? $1,350 per student. In effect, Texas said, we're going to give white kids 5 times the education that we give to black kids. Right. And this was throughout the South. I have seen a little bit of change there.
And
but never enough.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things I have to say is when I see on Facebook and social media people that are so, I'm just going to say white people that are so frustrated with black people, when you talk to them or you email them, they don't have any people of different color as friends. They may not have any young people as friends. They may not have, go ahead.
This is true. And very few black people have white friends.
Yeah.
So there's a rule in life now. You're not really an American unless you have at least a friend from Asia, Africa, Europe, Pacific, and so on. And then when you get to Europe, you got to have friends from Northern Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, and Western Europe.
And we have a very small audience, but we have one friend from Connecticut. Lydia, can I ask you, would you like to ask a question at all?
I'm intrigued.
You're intrigued?
Yeah.
Or you think about it for a minute, because she goes to Howard herself and is a very
Well, let me tell you
scholar.
about Howard. Would you want to break now?
Yeah, we're going to break and we'll come back on this, because this is a fantastic
Grab
discussion.
some popcorn.
This is great.
Pull
Yeah.
up a chair.
So roll our next clip of the Crystal Cave, because that'll be a nice little 4-minute transition here. The Crystal Cave and Cave Spring was a video that I did a couple years ago, and we're just going to play that for you now, and we'll be back in about 4 minutes. And
It's such a tease, though, because it's closed, right? You can't go in there.
well, yeah, you can't, but you can through the magic of video, you know. And so Houston's gonna pull it up in a minute there, and
In Houston's defense, we told him about 3 commercials, and he said, "Now this is it, right?" And we said, "Oh yeah."
yeah, and then there's
It's
more,
like
yeah.
Number 4,
Houston,
Crystal Cave.
yeah. Here we go. He's calling it up on the screen, and then
So, but before I think does he have it right now? Okay.
all right, go ahead.
We're rolling.
On today's video, we're going to look at Cave Spring and the Crystal Cave here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Just a quick note, this video is brought to you by Peter's Flooring and Paint. It's a family-owned business, and whether you need flooring, paint, window treatments, they're there to help you out. They'll give you a great attention to detail. It's over on 1217 Malvern Avenue. It's a fantastic place to go to get all those supplies for paint or flooring, window treatments, anything for your house that you can imagine. They got it for you. First, let's head out to Cave Spring. To get to Cave Spring, what you're going to do is start from the historic district and head down Route 7, which turns into Route 5 toward Fountain Lake, Arkansas. It's approximately 5 miles on the left, and as you're driving along, you're going to see a couple of these houses right at the 4.5, close to 5 mile mark, right before you get to this building, which is the Cave Spring building. I talked to the owner, Frank, who lives nearby, and he let me know this property is in the process of being cleaned up and will be available for rent or sale soon. Just like the picture, here's the steps to Cave Spring. The other interesting thing about Cave Spring is the road it's on. Now, this is the old stagecoach road that went between Little Rock and Hot Springs. So you can imagine spending 8 hours in a stagecoach, but taking breaks for water. And one of those breaks was right along the road here to the right, Cave Spring. So there it is, folks, Cave Spring here in Fountain Lake, Arkansas. We're now heading over to the Crystal Cave on Whittington Avenue. It is a closed historic tourist attraction that opened in 1920, but let's stop by. Now, for the first time in decades, let me show you footage inside the historic Crystal Cave. Now, the Crystal Cave was a tourist attraction that a man had originally built as just a room with crystals, and then he made it into a cave and he did tours through the whole thing, and he put individual crystals all over the wall. Matter of fact, even the outside of the Crystal Cave has nice Novaculite kind of rocks, crystal rocks, adorning the outside of this. I've known the current owner of the Crystal Cave for about 8 years now. These videos I filmed a few years ago where she was just showing it to some friends. She has no plans to open it to the public, and it remains on the grounds of her private residence. You're watching the Hot Springs Broadcast Network. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and feel free to make any comments that you want.
Wait a little bit.
And we are back. We are back in gear here. So where did we leave off, Lydia, on this?
We left off with, so in the commercial break, I asked Dr. Maxwell, I said, when have you ever had your dream fulfilled of having a brick and mortar store, or a brick and mortar school?
Mm.
And he said, never. And this is what the 4th of July event is kind of aimed to launch, is the funding of We Want a School.
Correct.
Okay, and so on 4th of July, we're going to meet at 9 a.m. at Entergy Park and go through all of these things. There's different places on your website where people can become sponsors, correct?
Right.
Okay, and you can name like...
And let's tell the website.
Are we on the air now?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, tell us the website.
GeniusDiscoveryAcademy.com.
Uh-huh.
GeniusDiscoveryAcademy.com. We can link it below. And it's a really neat website. You've got all of the background on Dr. Maxwell. Now, I went to click on the Genius Test.
Yes.
Tell us about the Genius Test. It's about $100 to take it.
Yep.
And does that go to help fund the school as well?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about the Genius Test, because I was really intrigued by
Keep
that.
talking.
I was in the one of the healthiest countries of Europe, for Albania. The Albanians are the ones who saved Christian civilization twice.
Interesting.
Constantine was not Greek, he was Albanian.
Okay.
And there's another general 400 years later who was Albanian who saved Europe again. So I was in love with that culture, and so I was invited down there to establish the academy there.
Mm-hmm.
The academy, the invitation came to me in June of 09.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get there till November 09. Guess what happened between June and November?
What?
A coup.
Oh, in
A
Albania.
change of government.
Yeah, and what year was that coup in Albania?
09.
09, okay, yeah. that's
So I got there, and I'm a persona non grata. Because if you're a friend of the enemy, you're an enemy.
Right.
And so I stayed and tried to get the school started, but it did not work. So I had to come home. But the school is going to be one day. It's coming now.
And you want it to be in Hot Springs.
We want it to be in Hot Springs.
It could be anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
In fact, one philanthropist said, put it on a ship.
Right.
And tow some barges behind it so the kids can run around a track that's floating and go everywhere in the world. Don't stay in one place. But anyway, we have to have a home. And Hot Springs is probably a good place, but it's up for bid. But we're going to start somewhere. I just received the first endowment. The endowment was a Persian sculptor who's probably the most famous Persian artist of any kind within the last 500 years. His name is Bijan Bahar. And if you go to his website, you'll see some magnificent sculpture.
Yeah.
He pioneered sculpture in acrylic. And so he just gave me literally the masterpiece of his 65 years of sculpting.
Oh my goodness.
He's done 3,500 sculptures, some of whom are in the Smithsonian. Another is in the Baccarat, the great Crystal Museum of Paris. And the one he gave me is worth a fortune.
So he's helping start the school.
That gets the school started because it's like a pump priming. Because he's going to make 90 copies that we can sell to anyone who wants to become a proven.
Well, the concept of your school is excellent because it really strips things down back to, like you said, Plato and these concepts that you have that people could find out on your website that people are like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And if we can also accomplish the unity of different types of people working together, that's such a wonderful.
Well, if you get on the website, and if anybody like me out there gets on there, it's so fascinating. I was just scrolling through every link. There's different things everywhere from $10 all the way to $25 million. You get something on campus.
Oh, wow, you better get
your
some
name
bigger.
on the bricks.
Yeah.
Or
Well, you asked me
something.
how did I conceive of it this way?
Yeah.
Well, I was in Albania, and I had a call from a university in Kansas City, a 15,000 student university in Kansas City, with most of the students being soldiers. And they wanted to prove to their accrediting agency that they raised the IQ of their students. So they said, Dr. Maxwell, will you please invent a test for our soldiers that will prove that when they enter Grantham University as a freshman, their IQ actually goes up. Because in most universities, it's the opposite. When you enter X university, your IQ goes down, typically, because you're made, anyway. So I said, I can't do that. I'm a testor, but not that competent. But happened to be in Albania, the brightest woman on the planet, I believe. She was a 100% blind from birth person, the first human on the planet to earn the PhD with full blindness from birth. She got her magna cum laude at Mount Holyoke, the premier women's college, and her IQ is 185. So I said to Dorothea, will you help me construct a test? Because that's her job in Albania, helping students pass the test to go to London University or whatever. So she and I worked on a test to find your IQs, Lydia, and it takes you about 90 minutes, and we only use 19 questions to measure your sociology, and we use 50 sample questions to measure whether or not you think mathematically or musically or artistically or scholarly or everyday or common sense or architecturally or whatever. And with just 50 questions, we could predict where your true talents are.
And also you can expound on those talents to bring them forward, or if there's a talent in music, use that to get them to tie into mathematics or something else, right?
Well, the backup position is, right now, Lydia could become a medical doctor with 10 years of work, easily. So if she were designed by God, in a sense, to be a medical doctor, but somehow her parents didn't train her in the right way, it's not too late. So if we put 10 years of her, put her in on the medical study for 10 years, she'd come out first class.
Wow.
So the backup is, any human can become anything at the excellent level with 10,000 hours of training.
I've heard
Love
that.
it.
The expert,
Yeah.
yes. And I want to say, I can't believe that I'm talking to a gentleman here that's 91, 65, 62 maybe, but you are sharp as people that I know at 30 and 40 or 50. You're much more educated, but your brain is just, how do you do it at 91? I mean, seriously. You know what I'm talking about here, Lydia?
Oh, I do.
I mean, you are just,
You're fascinating.
But what is your secret to life? To
easy going.
Yeah,
Answer it if you need to.
No, that's all right.
Put her on speaker.
We said that we would mute it. Yeah, there we go. So I have to ask you, what is your secret of being so together at 91, energy-wise, looks-wise, attitude-wise?
One, marry a good wife. My wife was a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and so she insisted that every night we have a salad, green salad.
Wow.
That's one secret.
All right.
Second, my genes are very good. My grandparents of my mother's side, my grandfather's white, pure white, Irish, and my grandmother's black, pure black, probably from Senegal area of West Africa. And both of them lived to be 90-something.
Wow.
So I had on my father's side, his father was a member of the Mohawk tribe, a registered member, and he was one of the best athletes in Howard County as a kid.
And so do you still do stuff physical wise? Do you have a routine?
I'm lazy now.
You could be at this
You
age.
can slow down.
You're pouring a little
Are
whiskey
your
at night.
grandparents who we're talking about in that first paragraph?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wow.
Well, and I'm not going to read it because you have to come to the event to hear some of these readings and the
No,
stories.
I'm fortunate. They were the first successful interracial marriage in Arkansas, and they got away with it.
And tell everybody what year this interracial marriage was.
1906.
1906. Can you imagine? I mean, 1906.
My husband is from Sri Lanka, and I try to tell my children and my students that when we, talk about civil rights and things like that, I said, my marriage couldn't have happened,
years ago.
Right.
And so this is like super important to me.
Yeah.
It could happen if the grandfather, Thomas Bowles, declared himself mulatto.
So he sort of had to
He
lie
had to
his
claim that
way
he
into
was
the
He
gay.
claimed he's with mulatto. He was married in a white Methodist church, probably by a cousin,
Yeah.
and they got away with it.
But what they had to put up with is young married people being of different color must have been extremely difficult for them.
Well, there were a
Arkansas.
lot of mulattoes in southern Arkansas and Louisiana at the time.
Right.
And so people assume, he's a mulatto, you can get away with it.
Yeah, I see. I see.
That's wild.
Well, and I can only guess that you do a lot of studying and reading every day.
I used to.
Yeah.
I used to read everything.
And now, your
No.
typical day? Come on. Yeah. Anyway, you're sharp as a tack. I love it. I love it.
Do you still eat a salad every night?
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Leafy greens have been shown to improve cognitive health.
And reduce red meat.
Okay.
Yeah.
and let's just tell people before we leave the air, how people can contact you if they want you to maybe you speak at a school or different things, because Lydia will have you speak at her school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but how can they get in
to?
touch with you?
And I also have a question to the audience,
Yes.
too, about the 4th of July thing.
Yeah.
You can get in touch with me through the website. It's www. Everything spelled normally, geniusdiscoveryacademy.com.
GeniusDiscoveryAcademy.com.
Now, the genius thing is not a snobbish thing.
I know.
Because the Bible declares that all humans are created in the image of God. So if God is a genius, be logical. And so that's where the idea of the creed comes from. Jefferson had a trouble with that idea. So he made it palatable a little bit. All men are created equal. And that's an echo of Socrates. Socrates was worried. He was bipolar and all kinds of things. He had great trouble. So he went up to Mount, what's its name? The Mount...
Olympus?
Not Mount Olympus.
I don't know. I'll say it wrong. Nebo or something.
Vesuvius?
No.
No. Thank you.
In Greece, the holy mountain, to ask the oracle of Delphi. The city is Delphi.
Delphi.
Oracle, who am I? And guess what her answer was?
What?
There's no one wiser than you. He couldn't believe it. So Socrates went on a world trip, the world at the time. Memphis, and everywhere.
Parnassus?
Yep, everywhere. And he asked the wise people questions. And lo and behold, he came back to Italy, Greece, and he said to all the young people, there's no one wiser than you. Translate that. You are equal to everybody.
Right.
It goes back to the book Be Here Now. We were all one and you were equal to everybody. Well, I say it goes back to, that was a 60s book, but that unity thing, I think that should be the next step in the progression of our society.
It's coming. You can feel it now.
Yeah. Got a little bump in the road, but sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid
We
off.
almost lost our democracy with so much corruption, so much deceit.
Right. agreed.
But the people are now saying, we want to protect our democracy. We're not hostile to anybody. We don't hate police.
Right.
We love our police. We just want them to be a little bit kind, the bad ones to be a little bit kinder, or not to be police at all.
Right.
Right. So rethinking the training and the different things. So, we said your website. They can get in touch with you through that. And I want to thank you, Professor, for
I
being
have a quick
here.
question.
Yeah.
Do I have time?
Yeah, we got time. Yeah.
The question is, the Greeks discovered that people should take an oath of allegiance to their country and to their city. And they invented the Athenian youth oath, a beautiful oath that only takes about 2 minutes. I want to invite every 15-year-old in Hot Springs to come to this event July 4th at the park. Which is the name of the park?
Entergy.
Entergy Park, and the place is the
Pond Pavilion.
Pond Pavilion, and take the Hot Springs version of the Athenian oath.
Okay.
But people warn me of social distancing, and you don't want a lot of people together. So I want people to go to the website and contact me. Is it a good idea to invite the 15-year-olds to take an oath promising to be good citizens?
My 14-year-old's going to be there.
Oh,
so,
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Well,
a great idea, but answer us in the
But
comments.
the freedom, question. Pardon?
I said I was telling our audience to answer your question
Please,
in our comments.
if you think it's a good idea, tell me. If you think it's a bad idea and we should not do it, because God forbid we want to spread this virus. The police have agreed already to come out and be sure that everybody's 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think people can weigh in on the comments.
Please.
And when people go to the park, they can be as distant as they want because there's a PA system hooked up. And, in the Spanish flu pandemic of 1913, 1919, I stand corrected. See, sharp as a dagger. So in 1919, they had open-air hospitals. And then what they found was, in Boston, the people with lung problems on the ships, tuberculosis as well as this, had a 25% survival rate if your bunk on the ship was near one of the portholes and windows.
Fresh air.
Fresh air. So as well as, and then what we're finding out is the highest death rates with COVID are people that get no fresh air.
Yes.
The nursing homes, they're not taken out. So a lot of the windows don't even open these days.
That's right.
And so I'm not saying it would get you better, but I'm saying if you're keeping your social distance, being out in the fresh air can be a good thing to keep the lungs active. And I think what happens is the lung is like a muscle that,
Correct.
Yeah.
And you also say that some of the participants
distance.
will be remote and the event will be, available on YouTube
That's right.
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
But,
Mike Mueller's
it's always
gonna be
nice
at
to be
video.
there live.
Yes.
So,
Also, the police have agreed no one enters the area unless they have a mask on.
Yes.
So
yes.
we'll be protected.
Yeah.
But we want to be sure that I'd like to know
That's my
the people
dog
within-
coughing, by the way, not a person.
Anyway.
Yeah, go ahead. Well,
excellent. Well, this has been so fascinating.
Fascinating, yeah.
I absolutely loved. Such a pleasure to get to meet you,
yes.
Dr. Maxwell, and
You have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of
Yes.
experience, and I'm very impressed. I hope when I'm 91, I have the energy and acuity of this man.
I know, and I hope we can raise enough money to get the school off the ground.
Well,
We will.
Those 53 innovations, 52, are so cool.
One
I
for
just
each week,
Loved
yeah.
reading.
That's only the
through them.
beginning. There are more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but if we can change the pattern on how people think and how people learn, we can evolve to a...
You know that it's already happening. I was talking to somebody this afternoon. They're not sending their kids to the public school because of the virus. So guess what they have to do? They're hiring tutors. The system is forced to change.
Right.
And that won't work because that's very, very expensive. Only the very wealthy can hire tutors.
Right.
Right.
Well, and a lot of people, Houston, and my children have been homeschooled. They started, though, at the school, a Gospel Light, that Lydia teaches at, too, for the first few years. So-
Gospel Light?
Yes, sir.
I heard of that school.
Yeah, it's great.
Someone told me it's different.
It's small and private and traditional, and
Her mother taught Sonia
We start
Chittum
every day with
started kindergarten.
prayer, pledges, and singing. So
And
I
singing.
think
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
along.
We're on the right thing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure
Thank you.
and a wealth of knowledge, and I would like to have you on
So
again
good.
sometime.
I think we have. Are we going to end with the Lorrays?
We can play the Rays. Well, we're gonna play the Rays. It's not queued up for this week, so we're just gonna
Okay.
end with the thing. But about the Rays, I want to say go down there and get your picture taken in front of the.
With Toddy?
No,
No.
in front of the wings.
Oh yes, no, that is the most. Isn't it one of the top Instagrammable
Probably in town. Yeah.
spots in Hot Springs?
Yeah.
It's on the side in that little alleyway,
Right.
like you're headed up to Grateful Head.
Right.
I call them the Diamond Wings.
Yep. Well, hey, wings are also
spot.
metaphorical. With the Genius School, you put on the wings of learning, and you could fly as high
Love
as you
it.
want to. So
Diamond wings aren't bad.
No, well, you want some diamonds.
I'm
That's
hungry.
what
I
you
want
want.
chicken wings.
All right. How do we devolve into this? Thank you, Lydia. I'm sure if we had a big audience today, I'm sure everybody would. You want a food show again, right?
I do.
Let's do a food show coming up.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. Well, thanks for joining us today, and thank Houston for switching in the room and our limited staff here. Thank Daniel and the other Lydia and Annie and Fluffy the dog was here, and thank Professor Maxwell for joining us. We'd like to hear what you want to see on shows in the future, so please email us or in the comments to let us know who or what you'd like to see. Subscribe, like, and share Hot Springs Broadcast Network, and we will see you next week on another issue.
You are watching the Hot Springs Broadcast Network.